I could be a jet, right? Right? Yeah, we're just gonna forget that ever happened. No, not gonna be a jet. Can't be a jet today. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today, our movie in the middle is West Side Story. West Side Story is a 2021 remake of the musical movie of the same name that came out in 1961, and it is a modern-day telling of Romeo and Juliet as a fight between two gangs in New York. It is the newest movie by Steven Spielberg, and it stars Ansel Elgort, Rachel Zegler, David Alvarez, Mike Faist, Ariana DeBose, and Rita Moreno, who was in the original 1961 West Side Story. I should probably mention I have seen the original 1961 West Side Story, but it has been a number of years since I have, and I did not get to rewatch it before watching the new one. So there might be some things that I talk about that did or didn't happen in the original. I probably won't really talk about it that much, but I know the basics of what it was like, and I'm pretty sure it was pretty close. Starting off with the highs, Spielberg. This is the most recent thing he's done since The Post, which came out almost 3.5 years ago. And if I was going to trust anybody to do a remake of West Side Story, it would be him. And it is because of Steven Spielberg that we get what I think is the best part of this movie. While it is a grittier, more grounded take on West Side Story, it does not stray really at all from the original. It's not so updated or anything that it feels like it's not even the original West Side Story and it's ruined it and why are we remaking it? It actually feels like it in and of itself is a classic movie. Like there are certain scenes, most of the movie, but there are specifically certain scenes that I watched and felt like I was actually watching a movie that was made in the 60s. Not set in the 60s, but made in the 60s. And a huge part of that is that they filmed this on actual film. It's not digital, and you can tell. It has that sort of gritty, noisy look to it, but it's so beautiful. And the way that it's lit and the types of shots that he came up with, it was a really, I think, almost perfect blend of 60s filming and today filming because it had all these tropes and types of shots and everything that looks like it was made back then, but almost like if the 1960s filmmakers had the means to do things that we could do today. You know, it still has a lot of these really big long takes and all these Spielberg-esque shots and things that he usually puts in his movies, but it feels like he traveled back 50, 60 years ago and was able to do it then. But this really is a beautiful movie. It feels very big, on a very big scale. It does feel like it was a musical just on stage, just translated to a movie, which, I mean, is basically what it is. But you know what I mean, because he even separates it into the three acts. You know, it really feels like this isn't just a story told in a movie. It feels like a musical on stage because after every act, there's like a fade out and then fade back in. It has all these elements in it that make it really feel like this was a Broadway production that Steven Spielberg directed. And of course, one of the biggest attributes of that is the music, which was beautiful. You know, it's not like I'm in love with every song, you know, like most musicals. There's songs that I like above more than others, but the music was just really well done once again, both in the actual songs and in the score between the songs. And when they decided not to use a score at all. I thought that was really, really well done, just to build tension and stuff like that. And along with the music, the choreography was insane. They did such a good job of playing around with it in different songs that had room to, you know, like I said, play around with what they're doing, what they're singing about, objects that they're able to use, kind of the sets that they have. But then in the bigger songs, when it's a whole ensemble of dancers, they did an awesome job of like these really complex dances that just go on for a really long time, and they're so intricate and really well done. It was quite a show. And man, they picked a lot of people in this movie that could really sing, but holy shit, Rachel Zegler can sing. There's only so many people who can hit falsettos like she did and have it be beautiful and not like I want to tear my ears off. But like I said, most of the people in this movie do a really great job, both at the dancing and the singing. This is just a quick note, but the guy who plays Riff, Mike Faist, I seriously believe that if they were to remake Singing in the Rain, watching out for the lightning, if they were to remake Singing in the Rain, which I doubt they would do, but I never know anymore, I really feel like he could play the Make 'em Laugh character. I forget his name off the top of my head. It's kind of embarrassing, but I really feel like he could play that guy really well. And I think one of the other things that was really good about this movie, that it made sense that Spielberg was the best decision for this, is that it has so many moments that they're pretty long and they hold on them for a while, but it's because they're important and you're just really living in that moment. Like when they meet for the first time, when there's a fight going on, things like that. It goes on for a long time, but you don't really feel it because you're just in that moment. And Spielberg is really good about being in a moment. He is really good about holding on things, sometimes a little too long for most people's tastes. They feel that he's a little bit too sentimental sometimes, but I think it really was important for this movie. Because there are just some scenes that they're really nice, and then there are some scenes that are hella emotional. Like I said, I have not seen this movie, the original, in a while, so I kind of forgot what was coming and when. Whew. I just have a middle element I just want to talk about for a second, and it's just a problem I have, not specifically with this adaptation, but just with the West Side Story in general, is I just really can't believe this love at first sight thing. I can understand, obviously, attraction at first sight and deep feelings for one another at first sight, but the whole, again, I know that they're young. I know that it is based off Romeo and Juliet, which is about two very young people who don't understand commitment and love and think that they do. I get that. But, like, I don't know. I just don't quite believe that even for those two, that even being that young, they would be like, I'm ready to get married and run away. Like, I mean, maybe, but I don't know. This whole movie takes place over the course of like a day and a half, and I forgot that till it was like the third act of the movie, and they mentioned last night something happened, and I was like, oh my god, it's been one day. You kids are crazy. It just feels weird that they would just meet like that, and it would be perfect. There's not even any, like, conflict between them in the beginning or anything, and then they would be in love forever until the end of the movie. It just, I don't know. If you want me to believe in the stakes of the movie, you have to have the big plot points that are involved in those stakes be just as real. Again, this has nothing really to do with this movie specifically. It's just following the story. It's just the story in general. Again, I know they're young. I know it's Romeo and Juliet. But it's just something that's always bothered me. I do have one major low for this movie. And unfortunately, that is Ansel Elgort. I don't necessarily know if it was on him, if it was on Spielberg, if it was on the writing, the casting, whatever. When I first saw that Ansel Elgort was cast for West Side Story, I thought, man, that's a perfect casting. He looks the part. And that's the thing, he looks the part. But can he do the part? Actually seeing him in this role, he felt awkward and miscast. It just felt like he was awkward the whole time, and I couldn't quite believe him on either side of his character, meaning I didn't quite believe that he was this menacing leader of a jet who almost killed a kid because he was so violent and vicious. But on the other side of that, I also don't believe that he's this genuine guy who really loves Maria and wants to be there for her genuinely without being like kind of fake with her. You know, it's weird. Like, he's like kind of half and half, and I can't really believe either side. Some moments were fine, don't get me wrong, it's not the entire movie. But for the most part, it felt like his entire character, while it is a very cool character, was either written poorly or acted poorly. It also, he's like really fucking tall, and they talk about that a lot in this movie, and I don't know if that was part of it. I don't want to say that him being tall took away from the character, but it might have. I don't know. He just, like I said, he just felt awkward in the role. So overall, West Side Story, I think, was a really good adaptation. I know a lot of people are saying it didn't even need to be remade. I think the original was fine from what I remember. Again, I have to see it because it's been a minute. But I think what it did was give a little bit of a darker, more grounded feel, because the original was made in the 60s, where a lot of these musicals, you know, that and in the 50s and 40s were a little more abstract. They were a little nicer. They definitely had those emotional moments, but they had like dance scenes that would like get, I don't want to say psychedelic, but kind of weird. You know what I mean? This movie, I think, does makes you feel all of that sentiment and emotion and gives that sort of feeling. It just, I think, is a little bit more realistic, and that's what the movie was going for. And technically, they did a phenomenal job with all the music, the singing, the dancing, the filming. Being on film itself made it a really great watch. I think the scope was insane. I just didn't really believe Ansel Elgort in his role. However, I will say, paired with Rachel Zegler, I think that their connection was really great. I really loved their connection. I think that was actually one of the stronger points of the movie. It kind of is the main point of the movie, but it definitely was one of the stronger because I really felt it. And honestly, that's probably mostly because of Rachel Zegler, but they both had that passion. Their characters really had the passion for each other. I love Steven Spielberg, man. He's my favorite director. If I've never mentioned that before, I don't know if I have, but I definitely should have by now because he is my absolute favorite director. No matter what he does, it's even if it's not a great movie, even if it's just kind of regular, it's not one of his classics or whatever. You can always feel his passion for filmmaking in a movie, and you can always feel his expertise. You can always see that in the movie. I'm going to give West Side Story a 3.5 out of 4. Let me know what you thought of West Side Story if you got a chance to see it. If you haven't yet, I really think that you should go see it. It hasn't been doing great at the box office, and I believe that is for a number of reasons. One, unfortunately, not as many people are interested in movie musicals and classics anymore, which is understandable, but it's still unfortunate. Two, the whole cancel Elgort thing. I actually don't really know what came of that. I think it was proven that he didn't do anything, but that scandal's still there. And three, this is coming out in December, in the midst of a bunch of major box office movies and blockbusters, and a week before Spider-Man No Way Home. And of course, this is all during COVID still as well, so some people just still aren't going to the theater. So please go, if you're gonna go to the movies, and before you see Spider-Man No Way Home, or even after, go see West Side Story. It really is a very emotional movie, and I think it's a really great watch to see on the big screen. This isn't really one that you'll be able to get the full effect if you're not watching it in a dark theater on the big screen. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.